In God's kingdom, before He increases you, He decreases you. Before He blesses you, He tests you. Before He positions you, He transitions you. Unfortunately, these processes feel jolting and uncomfortable, but they are unavoidable paths to the promise and prerequisites for increase. So, if you are in a season where you are struggling with trauma, trouble, and transition, God sent me to tell you that something good is coming out of this. And if you can just endure the trial and keep the faith, you'll see that in the end, you will be more blessed than you've ever been before. I grew up not having a lot of things. Sometimes our big family didn't know what we would eat. We lived in homes where rats and roaches ran about freely. On numerous occasions, we were without working electricity, heat, and hot water. I wasn't raised with the safe feeling of having enough, but I always found solace in my relationship with God. As I grew older and ventured into entrepreneurship, I learned that I had a knack for business. Though I never envisioned myself owning my own business, I leaned into it because I didn't want our family to experience the harsh realities of poverty that I had endured as a child in a family of 14. Over time, things grew and expanded in my business. Those who saw me flourishing in the marketplace would say things like, "Wow, you're so lucky. You're so blessed. That's amazing that you can collect big checks." They didn't know that, although I was building a team, doing major business with Fortune 500 companies, being invited onto platforms I'd never dreamed of, building lucrative online media properties, being hired to launch marketing, branding, and publicity campaigns for multi-million-dollar organizations, and being paid handsomely for ghostwriting best-selling books for business and ministry leaders respected worldwide, none of that filled me up. Once I learned the ropes in business, of course my heart was grateful that the Lord prospered me. With His help, making money came easy for me. And yet, I knew that growing my bank account wasn't my ultimate purpose in life. But if you asked lots of my colleagues and peers, I had made it. In their eyes, receiving a steady flow of new clients and experiencing rapid growth and expansion was the quintessential definition of living the dream. Even so, I felt unimpressed and uninspired by what impressed and inspired them. The business gains felt like personal losses because they left me hollow and unfulfilled. Deep down, I knew that there was more for me. In fact, God was leading me down another path. He was setting me up for greater things, and by greater, I mean more purpose-driven things. Making money, while necessary and helpful, was never the be-all and end-all for me. I have always believed that God showed me how to build my network and net worth so that I could build His kingdom, not my own reputation. The opportunities He granted me were not given to me to satisfy carnal desires for worldly gain. There's a saying I love so much, friend, that goes, "Some people are so poor, all they have is money. Money devoid of purpose, in my view, equals poverty." At a time when I was making more money than I ever had and responding to more offers than I'd ever received, I was also more restless than I'd ever been. I didn't have peace the way I once did. God was shifting me. I didn't know it right away, but He was leading me away from the for-profit business model to a non-profit ministry model. The change didn't happen all at once. Gradually, with prayer and open ears to hear what the Spirit was saying, the transition began. So, when certain opportunities to sign big contracts came across my desk, God told me to say no. When huge doors I once routinely walked through would open, God told me to walk away from them. And when favorable and lucrative strategic partnerships were presented to me, God told me to decline them. Though I didn't know exactly where He was calling me, I knew who was calling me, so I followed the Lord by faith. I turned down the old and familiar to embrace the new and unfamiliar. Looking back, I can truly say that this was one of the best decisions of my life. God has faithfully kept His promises to me and caused me to experience greater impact, fulfillment, blessings, and prosperity in the things He has called me to. Hearing and heeding the voice of God will transform your life and catapult you to greater dimensions of purpose, blessings, favor, and prosperity. Take into consideration the fact that the level of wealth Abram possessed in Haran in no way compared to what God was about to release to him as a reward for his faith. Whenever God calls you away from the familiar, uproots you from the comfortable, and draws you to a new place, that means He has more for you. Something greater awaits you on the other side of your yes. It may not make sense at the time, but if you trust God and heed His call, He will reward you in ways you haven't considered yet. Abram's obedience by faith shifted his destiny and the destiny of generations. You and I are reaping the benefits of his faith. Friend, there are generational blessings tied to your yes. There are supernatural breakthroughs connected to your obedience. There are miracles, signs, and wonders that will be released by your faith. So, if you are going through a time of uncertainty where nothing makes much sense, do what Abram did and tell God, yes. Walk by faith and not by sight. Accept God's call to leave the familiar for the unfamiliar, and you will step into your promise, receive your inheritance, and position yourself to reap every single thing He has stored up for you.